I don't know that I would be the dad and the husband that I am if I didn't go through all that pain. And now I know what to avoid. Those experiences were huge. So anyone struggling out there, there's a better way to live.
Welcome to the Live Fit, Break Free podcast, a podcast about resilience, discovering purpose, and living life deep.
Welcome back to the Live Fit, Break Free podcast, episode 3. Man, are we excited to be back with you guys for our third episode. Live Fit, Break Free is a podcast where we go deep on all things addiction and recovery, as well as the power of fitness and community. So I am here today, as always, with our wonderful co-host, Jesse Karajat. Jesse, say hi, please. Be nice.
How are we doing, everybody? Happy to be here.
Wonderful. And we also are here with our special guest today, Mike Weshnak, a competitive powerlifter, all-around great guy, and super excited to get into all things Mike, essentially. But before we do that, really wanted to give everybody a little quick PSA, up to date on what's going on here at All Things Ultim. We have been insanely busy, specifically that handsome man, Jesse, over there, getting everything geared up for our 12/31 launch of our fitness apps that are absolutely going to change the game. I'm obviously a little bit biased, but you guys will have to see for yourselves. It's going to be incredible. We're also going to be launching our Ultim Tribe community app. Between both of these apps, you're going to be getting a number of things, but more specifically, expert fitness coaching, science-backed habit change courses, and again, much, much more. And also, you just get to know us, and we're pretty awesome, if I have to say so myself. Lastly, does anybody want a home gym? Because we're kind of giving one away. And by kind of, we're 100% giving one away. And in order to find out more, all you have to do is join our Dry January 2024 challenge, and you will be entered to win. So a lot more coming there. But jumping on into things today, Mike, we're here for you, buddy. And I am so excited to learn, honestly, all about you, from the competitive powerlifting side to, your family to, obviously all things addiction and recovery. And, you got 8 years clean, which is insane. God bless you, man. That is
Years in January.
And
Yeah,
I'm going to stop rambling and dude, let's just jump right in. So obviously, competitive powerlifter, that's insanely incredible and inspiring in and of itself. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that's like and honestly the journey from the weight room to
sure. Yeah.
powerlifting?
I started lifting weights in high school, I guess. Tiny little guy, stuck with, even all through active addiction. It was very weird, active addiction on a daily basis. Drugs came first, but I still went to the gym. It was a unique thing. So it's been a part of my story from the beginning. But when I got clean and I ended up going to a different gym where I was exposed to powerlifting, and I saw these guys just, squatting these weights with the bar bending, and they're covered in chalk and baby powder, and, they're smelling these weird things. And I was blown away. I said, what is this? What do these guys do? And they're doing one rep, and that's it. And I was so intrigued, and I had this void in my life that needed to be filled. Right. And, we'll get into all that, what happens when you first get clean. It's an uncomfortable thing. So powerlifting fit right in perfect. It was great. I could fill the void. I could get the adrenaline rush. I found something to be competitive at, something to do on a daily basis. And it's real easy to track, what you're lifting is a number, and you want to add 1 pound to that number and then 1 more pound, So it's really just been amazing the last 8 years having something to push myself.
So I know this powerlifting and, just overall weight training just seems to be obviously a huge part of your story. What have you been able to apply from the gym and, your lessons of iron essentially, and, what that's trained you to do? And like, how have you applied that to like your career or your personal life in any sense?
Yeah. The structure and the consistency. I have my program. It's spelled out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have to hit those days. I have to hit those numbers. I have to prioritize getting there. If work or family gets in the way, which that's fine, work and family come first, but I will find myself going to the gym at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, whatever it might be. So the time management, the commitment, just the pushing myself on a daily basis, it applies to the other aspects of life, and going and pushing myself to that limit,
Yeah.
not all the time. We're not squatting 1,000 pounds 7 days a week, but just pushing myself to a fairly extreme level on a pretty regular basis. It's just great for the mental health. It makes
Yeah.
me better at work. It
Yeah.
makes me better at home. I feel like I'm just a better husband, a better dad. For lack of a
Yeah.
better word, a hobby. I mean, essentially that's all it is. It's a hobby, but it's extremely important to me.
Absolutely. No, clearly it's paid off in dividends. So let's start diving into, a little bit back in the beginning of your story. Let's go back to the fun childhood days. And I would love to learn more about some of the comments you made earlier around authority and having issues with, that type of structure. And I mean, that's a very similar
Yeah.
trait that I feel like a lot of us share when it comes to being in the realm of addiction and recovery, obviously having issues with that.
When I first got clean, this was like something I used to really harp on, was where did this start? How did
Mhm.
this happen to me? Was I born an addict? What was it genetic? Was it nature versus nurture? Was it a combination of all of it? Was it, childhood trauma? And, I know we're fast forwarding a bit, but I've learned now, one, you're never going to be able to really figure all that out. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a psychologist, I'm never going to figure out how or why I became what I became, but also like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not, I mean, who cares? Like, who cares? Who cares how I got to where I got? I got there, I lived through it. And, now I can just get better each day going forward.
Yeah.
Sure. To go down memory lane, I had that authority problem as far back as I can remember. And that could be the root of a lot of things. When I was very young, I had this authority problem and I craved attention, good attention and bad attention. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what kind
Yeah.
it was. So I was always, and there was adrenaline seeking too, so as a very young child, I got very into skateboarding for several reasons, not just because, I could go fast and I could jump off stuff and I could get hurt and I could bleed. And, there was the adrenaline and there was the athleticism and all that, but it was also like this like counterculture back then where, we dressed different, we acted different, we were rebellious, and it just spoke to me. There was a stigma that went with it back then, and I think it's kind of gone now. Skateboarding's become very mainstream, and I think it's going to be in the Olympics now, and it's not frowned upon like it used to be. I mean, when I was a kid, my dad used to break my skateboards with an axe. It was a hated thing back in the early 90s, so I just gravitated towards it because I wanted to be part of that counterculture, with the blue hair and the, if they found a skateboard in your locker, they would take it. This was in elementary school. You weren't even allowed to have a skateboard in school. It was wild. So that was my childhood, right? Was just acting out all the time, seeking attention, seeking adrenaline, and just riding the skateboard all day, every day. My parents would put me in sports and, I would go to them. I was a little kid, 7, 8 years old, but all I wanted to do was just ride that skateboard and get in trouble. I didn't want to get in trouble, but it was just a part of me,
Was that linked to, because you said before you wanted attention? Was the trouble linked to that attention?
Yeah,
as well?
good attention and bad attention. I didn't care, what it was. And I was probably trying to piss off daddy at the same time. That was a big hobby of mine. My parents split at a young age, and that was a good thing. I stayed with my mom and my sister, and there was less time with my father, but there was still time. And then the years just kind of went by from that young age, through middle school into high school. I was just that same kid, getting in trouble, not major trouble, just acting out kind of trouble. My poor mother. My mother was a saint, and I just put her through hell. In high school, same thing, but then the partying started. Alcohol started probably in middle school, but very, very rarely, it was just how would you get it at that age, but I do remember it being intriguing, right? Grabbing a beer out of the garage fridge or whatever. Like I remember how bad it tasted, but yet I wanted more, and I mean, maybe that's normal.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we were young, when we first started sneaking those. And then getting into high school, it was party time. I mean, we went out every weekend, maybe weeknights too. And I had to push it further than everyone else. I had to drink more. I had to be the cool guy. I had to be the center of attention.
Hey, Mike, is that hindsight kind of recognition, or did you know at the time that those things were important to you and you were seeking them actively?
In high school, I knew that alcohol was extremely important to me. The behaviors, maybe not so much. Those might be more hindsight. The attention seeking. I just thought I was Mr. Cool. I didn't think it was maybe necessarily a problem. And I certainly didn't think the alcohol was a problem, but I was well aware that I was pushing it further than everyone else. But I thought that made me cool, Yeah. I can drink,
get it.
An 18 pack and I'm 100 pounds. That was that was a badge of honor,
I get it.
Yeah.
And Mike, so at this point when, you were drinking and everything around the high school, it was more so just partying though, right? It wasn't like I'm not trying to numb anything at this point or anything.
No, I wasn't running from anything. I wasn't numbing anything. I just thought it was cool. We would go to parties and we would get kegs in the woods. Everyone was doing it. I was just doing it a little further than them.
And then, from the high school years, what did it look like, getting into the late teenagers?
Freshman year of high school, I played football just freshman year. And I remember the seniors. There was a weight room in the gym, but we also had this other gym down the road. It was called Premier Fitness. And I would see the seniors benching. And I don't remember what they were benching, but I remember thinking it was so cool. And I wanted to bench 135. That was the thing. I was like 98 pounds. There was no benching 135. I wasn't even close to it. But I vividly remember thinking, I'm going to do that. I want to bench one plate, But at the same time, it was also much more important for me to, get drunk and go to the skate park and skip football practice completely. So I was exposed to lifting, and I remember thinking how cool it was, especially these older guys. But they were drinking a lot too on the weekends, but they were seniors, So, and I always gravitated towards the older guys too. So I wanted to impress them, I wanted to fit in with them. So as high school went on, I started taking lifting pretty seriously then. But drinking was pretty serious by then. And I think some drugs may have started then too. I don't know if they started in high school or not. It's a little hard to remember. But after graduating, I did not go away to college. I went to community college here and I stayed home. And then that's when the decline kind of really started. I started graduating from drug to drug, and school became very much on the back burner. Still skateboarding all the time.
So the bridge between heavy drinking, anti-authority teenager type with a consistent training regimen, which is awesome that somehow you managed to do both, right? But when that switch happened, obviously environmentally, you're out of high school. It's a different world, so to speak, right? But what was it that kind of introduced like any other drugs into your life? And I'll say for myself, it was just exposure to them and access to them through friends who had already kind of taken that leap. It was, it's Friday night, you're already drunk. Hey, here's this thing, try this too. And then you do one, you kind of, you broke the seal, if you will. And then you find yourself open to other things. So for me, it was just the people I was with and what they were already doing. What was it for you?
Similar to you in the beginning, when I went from alcohol to I guess we'll call them soft drugs. It was exposure for sure, right? Like they were there. I was drunk. Other people were doing it. A lot of us were doing it. It was not necessarily being abused by most people, but a few of us would push it to the limit, right? So if you were already drunk and then we got introduced to cocaine, right around this time, right? Just out of high school, 19, 20, something like that. too young to go to the bars. Again, a lot of my friends that weren't screw ups, they were gone. They were at college, so I was stuck home, started running with some different crowds. And yeah, it was just exposure. It was just available, and there it was, and I would do it. But I would take it.
It was there, yeah,
to the max,
And do you think that same Mike that was like a middle schooler that was told, hey, you can't bring your skateboard to school, and then like brought the skateboard to school and said, I'm just going to do what I want. Do you think it's the same kind of instinct or tendency when the first time someone said, hey, try this thing or do this thing? It was the same Mike that's just like, yes to thrill seeking, yes to.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I knew it was wrong, and anything that was wrong was appealing. Right. So there's that. But then there was also the arrogance and the ego of nothing bad's going to happen to me. I'm different. I won't get addicted to this. I won't die. I won't get pulled over. I won't, whatever, cause I'm me, I'm special,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's funny how we all think that, it's never us, but to everybody else, we're that somebody else, so that's a really good point. And I one of the things that, you mentioned, Mike, that I can relate to personally is like it being there, everyone doing it, everyone just vibing in the moment and like being a people pleaser, always wanting everybody to be around me to be happy and not mad at me, and like making sure that before I even put myself first, I had to make sure everybody in the room was cool with me and that I didn't do anything to piss anybody off. And then if there was something that everyone was doing, it wasn't a question. It was a matter of how much, So I think that's a really good point you brought up there. So throughout juggling, skateboarding, the powerlifting, and obviously the drinking and drugging and everything, like what was home life like at this point too?
That's an important part of how all this escalated too. So I moved out after high school. I got a rental. So I was on my own. So there was no supervision anymore from my mother. I had my own. I started out with a winter rental, and then, the following year I got a year-round rental that I ended up being in for, I think, 2 years. And it was just me, and it was the party house. I mean, I would throw a party pretty much every night, and normal people would come and we would party. And then at the end of the night, when they would leave at a normal hour, whatever that is for a 20-year-old, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., that's when I would have the next wave of friends roll through,
The round tours.
Yeah. Well, the normies, right? They would have a few beers and then go home.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
That never made any sense to me. Yeah.
What's the point?
The normies. That's gotta, if that's not viral or a hashtag, that's gotta be both. The normies. When the normies would leave with their stupid beers, the fun would start.
A couple key bumps and then they would go
That's
home.
when the real party would begin.
I just want to say too, I feel so bad for your heart during this season as you're crushing it with weights at the gym and crushing it with no sleep and all the other habits you had going on. That heart was probably pretty upset with you during that time.
All right, Mike. So at this point, you're in your early 20s. Tell us about, where else you're at. Where are you at location wise at this point in your life?
Yeah. So I'm still in New Jersey. I had moved out. I was on my own. Was able to finish community college and got accepted to University of San Diego, which the only reason I applied to that school was for the skateboarding. So packed my car up and I drive out to San Diego. I end up staying out there for 7 years, 8 years. I don't know. I took like 5 years to graduate because I was obsessed with skateboarding once I got out there. I thought I was going to make something out of it. I was pushing as hard as I could, but the partying really escalated out there. I was so far from home. I knew nobody, was making a name for myself. It was like early high school all over again. I gotta push the envelope so these people like me, and I would come home in the summers, and that's when I really kind of started running with the wrong crowd, but only when I was home. So I would go back out to San Diego, and there was drinking and coke and partying, but I was lifting, I was skateboarding, and then I would come home for the summers or Christmas break or whatever, and that's when I kind of really moved up in drugs of choice. or, to fast forward after, 7 or 8 years or so out there, I finally decided to move home. And when I did, that was the real end for me.
Okay.
That was hard drugs, 7 days a week, stopped talking to my friends. Skateboarding was way on the back burner, lifting way on the back burner. I was in full blown addiction at that point.
Wow. All these years, Mike, I thought that transition happened when you were in California. I didn't realize it was coming back home.
Mike, so I know you said when coming home was essentially the turning point here. What about coming home was kind of the catalyst for you, where it was just like, I need to numb all of this, or I need to escape, or whatever it was that was going on?
Yeah, it wasn't an escape, right? It was
Yeah.
it was these secret lives that I had become very addicting to me. So, I had graduated to some pretty serious drugs, but only with a couple of guys that were here. Those drugs I didn't see in California.
Which sounds
if I did,
like the opposite.
Yeah, I know, so weird, right? I'm 3,000 miles from home with no supervision, and I was actually on better behavior out there. I would have 4 days of no one knowing that I was in New Jersey to just go on this wild bender.
Wow.
And then I would get 2 or 3 days with my family and friends, and then I would go back, whether it be like Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever. The summers were rough. Like, I would come home and a whole bunch of us would get a summer rental together, and they were my childhood friends, and they were drinking and maybe doing some other things. But I had this secret life,
Yeah.
And when that secret life started, because I was an open book until my mid-20s.
Yeah.
And then when I developed this secret life, that's kind of really the beginning of the end, right? Now you have these like alter egos,
You can't tell the difference between what's a lie and what's truth anymore, so it's all blurring for you.
Yeah. It was a mess. The only good thing that happened was I did meet my wife, and I was a mess, but she didn't know. She thought I was just a drinker and a partier. It was evident that I was wild and that I drank a lot. She had no idea what was going on, behind the scenes. And that went on for, I think I moved home from California at like 26. I met my wife around 27. And then I got clean at 30.
So how,
we were.
So how long then, if you were to identify when you were at your worst, to pick that word, how long did that season last?
That was about 3 years of daily, everyday, large amounts, scraping by.
Wow.
Unbelievable amount of lying, disappearing, getting sick if I didn't have what I needed, an impossible alter life and lies to keep up with.
3 years. When you say 3 years so fast, you kind of gloss over, but 3 years is a long time to live like that.
As you can tell from the beginning of my story, I was always able to like kind of keep it together. Like, even when I was doing, those quote softer drugs, like I would go to the gym and get high in the bathroom and then go bench 315 and then go get high in the bathroom again. So even once I graduated to like just, an awful life of addiction and dereliction, and I was still able to keep jobs. I would get fired frequently, but then I would get a new one. I was living with my wife, who at the time was my fiance. Our rent was cheap. I didn't eat much. I was just doing drugs. I just got by, for 3 years. I mean, she started to catch on towards the end. That's when things got real bad. Then there was the lying and the fighting, and she wanted out. I wanted her to get out for her sake. As much as I loved her, I thought there's no end in sight for me. This is me. You have now figured out the real me. I am a drug addict. I am a mess. I'm incapable of change. You need to get as far away from me as possible. As much as I loved her, that was the only thing that made sense to me. You get to this place where, I didn't necessarily want to kill myself, but I thought the world would be a lot better without me. Certainly she would be, I mean, I'm putting this girl through hell. And, there's nothing I can do about it. At least that's what I thought. I tried a few times. Like, I would kick drugs, right? I would get violently ill for like 6, 7, 8 days, violently ill. And I was strong enough where I would do it. I would get through the week and I would be clean for 7 days. And the sickness was kind of on its way out, right? The sweats, the shakes, all that. And then I'd be like, oh, that wasn't that bad. I should go celebrate.
Yep. Let me treat myself with exactly what it was that put me in here. We're good at that, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Just sick, twisted thinking, man.
Nicole stuck with you, man.
She did.
What?
She did.
Why do you think she did that?
She loved me, man, and she saw what I couldn't see, inside. She knew who she fell in love with. But I pushed her to the edge, man, and it got to the point we can start the road to recovery here, because this is a perfect time. She told me to get the fuck out so many times, and she would cry and she would be emotional, and I knew when she was crying, I still had her, right? Because we're manipulative, and we're addicts are just awful at taking advantage of people. And then this one day came where she handed me her engagement ring and she told me to get out, and she wasn't crying.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
She's done.
Yeah.
She's actually done. So at that point I had two choices in my mind, go off myself and make this world better, which was a pretty feasible option at that point. Or option 2 was, let me try, to go get clean. And I told her, I'm going to go get help. And she said, okay. We hadn't done that yet, right? We had tried therapy. We had tried cold turkey. We had, all these things. I never actually went and got professional help, right? I remember looking into it, Google search or whatever. And I was like, man, 28 days in rehab. I can't go away for 28 days. That's insane. So I Googled shorter rehabs. That was my Google search. And I found what I now know is a detox, a 7-day detox.
There you go.
And I went with no intentions of staying clean. None. I was just buying myself more time, right? Because that's all I had ever done for 20 years. Just slide through the cracks, manipulate and navigate. And I got to this detox, and, obviously I fell asleep. I didn't come out of my room for like 48 hours. And then when I finally, came out of the room like a zombie, and there were all these people that were there for drugs and alcohol that I wanted nothing to do with. But this guy came to speak that night, and he had a long time clean. He was a fairly famous rock star, at least in my world. And I was like, well, this is awesome. I should go to treatment more often. I get to meet the guitar player from Joan Jett, right? And I sat with him after, man, and he was actually clean. He had actually been a junkie, and he was actually clean. And I was like, no shit. I'm like, people really can do this,
This can happen.
This can happen. So wow. I made the decision that night. I'm never getting high again. Alcohol, I wasn't so sure about that one yet, but I'm never doing these drugs again. And I meant it so much that every morning they would medicate you in these places. And the next morning I didn't want what they were giving me, right? All these pharmaceuticals. And they said, no, you have to take these. Otherwise you have to leave. That's how insurance works. Wow. So for the next couple of days, I was taking the morning stuff and I was spitting them in the garbage can. And after, like, that's how bad I wanted to be clean. I didn't even want what they were giving me.
Yeah.
And they saw me do that on, like, I think it was like day 5 or 6. And they threw me out of detox.
Hey, quick question. So it feels to me, and I want to hear you respond to this, but a major, if not the sole catalyst for your recovery was your relationship with Nicole. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have much of a will to live anymore. I didn't think I had much of a future. I had my well, she wasn't my wife at the time, but I had Nicole and I had my mom. And I remember thinking in active addiction, like, I just really hope I outlive my mom. I just don't want my mom to have to bury her son, So, and then once she was gone, I didn't think Nicole would still be in the picture, you know?
Yeah.
It was crazy to me that she was staying with me.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to, my wife, Megan, Alyssa, Justin's wife, and shout out to Nicole, because I feel like our partners play such a role, just standing by our side, sticking with us and motivating us. So when you hear this, Nicole, we love you. Shout out. Thanks for saving this guy. He's the man.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
So, Mike, now at this point, after you get kicked out of Detox, where are you at mentally?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I got kicked out of Detox for wanting to be clean, so
that's pretty impressive.
I took that as like a, let's go. And Nicole was willing to take me back. Of course, I had like 5-6 days clean. I was coming out of treatment, went home, went back to our apartment, started going to meetings, found a really good group of guys, just did the recovery thing. Early on, it was hard for me to talk to her, because she didn't understand. And that was so hard for her. She's like, you're disappearing more now clean than when you were on drugs. You would disappear to go get high. Now you're disappearing every night to go to a meeting, every morning to go to a meeting, but I needed to be around these dudes that knew what I was going through. I didn't talk even to them much. I just needed to be around them,
I can relate to that 100%, man, especially with, I tried to do the 90-90 when I first got out of inpatient. And my wife struggled the same thing. She's like, I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing for you, but like, this is still you being away, and like more time with the kids and everything falling on her while daddy's trying to get his shit together.
We didn't have kids, and we weren't married yet. And I can't imagine, the strain on a spouse if we did, because the strain on my spouse was enough, with no kids, so I can't imagine. But, I was told early on, it's okay to be selfish this first, 90 days. You need to be, because
you have to.
You need to come first right now. You can't take care of anyone else. You need to just take care of yourself. You got to learn how to tie your shoes. This guy, Lou, I'll never forget. He told me, eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, smoke cigarettes, do whatever you want. Just go to a meeting every day and don't get high. That's it. That's all you're in charge of right now. Don't worry about your marriage. Don't worry about Nicole. Don't worry about your future. You need to just get through this first couple months. So, that first couple months was very selfish. I was not communicating with Nicole. I was missing more than ever. I was MIA because I was at meetings, and then we'd go to the diner after the meetings, and I'd come home and she'd be asleep, and then I'd wake up and she'd be gone and she'd be at work. I mean, she was drug testing me because she couldn't believe anything I said.
Well, for sure. But hey, it sounds like, those first early days quickly turned into months, and months quickly turned into years. And now you're at 8 years, or just about 8 years.
Just about, January 4th, man. I'll have 8.
January 4th, man. We'll be pulling for you.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely, man. And now throughout this time, obviously, we're getting close to wrapping up here. I want to see how we can tie like powerlifting throughout this journey, throughout the next 8 years almost of you being sober. Like how has just been so intertwined within everything, right?
Yeah, it's weird. It found me at the perfect time, right? So, I mean, even in active addiction, I had a gym membership, like I said, and I would show up from time to time, but I had never seen powerlifting. And then I get clean. I probably didn't go to the gym for a month or two. I was not right. And then when I went back to the gym, I see these two guys powerlifting. They're wrapping their knees and they're squatting. And I think I already touched on this, but I was like, what the fuck are they doing? This is insane. Because I had no will to skateboard anymore, which was so like upsetting, something that I had done for like 25 years or so. I mean, I wasn't blaming skateboarding for the road that it brought me down. I just had no desire to do it. I had no desire to fall down a flight of stairs sober, So powerlifting finds me with like a couple months clean, and I'm obsessed. I'm immediately obsessed. I had been benching my whole life. I had never squatted, never deadlifted.
Real quick, for the sake of the listeners, let's orient them, because I mean, I have a pretty good understanding what powerlifting is. I know what the words strength training are, hypertrophy, right? We're going to kind of pivot towards fitness, but can you just give like an overall big picture explanation of what is powerlifting? How is it different than other things? And kind of give us also, because you are a competitive powerlifter, Kind of explain the landscape of what that looks like. What does it mean, organizationally to be a competitive powerlifter?
Sure, sure. Yeah. So the sport itself, it's a niche sport. It's growing, but it's three lifts: squat, bench, and deadlift. In a competition, you would get 3 attempts at a squat, 3 attempts at a bench, 3 attempts at a deadlift. They take your best one from squat, bench, and deadlift. They add those three together. That's your total, right? And in powerlifting, everything revolves around your total, right? That's how we compare ourselves to each other, especially if you're in the same weight class. Who's ever got the bigger total is stronger. So, someone can out squat me by 100 pounds, but if I've got enough on their bench and enough on their deadlift,
Yeah.
I then have the bigger total. I am the winner of the day.
I like it.
Right? So we train. Everything revolves around training for singles. We're not constantly doing singles. That would
Singles?
be, very dangerous.
What is a single?
One rep.
Got it.
One rep, right? So like in a competition, we are squatting one rep. And if you get it, you can go up. You get 3 attempts. If you don't get it, you could either take it again, you could go up. So all of our training revolves around having the heaviest squat single, bench single, and deadlift single on meet day. So as the meet gets closer, you will start pushing your singles. In the off season, maybe you're doing volume, accessories, more of like a gym workout that you guys might be more used to.
Yeah.
We
How many
split,
days a week
yeah.
of training in the off season?
It has been 5 lately. As I get older, it's 4.
That's all right.
Yeah, we're doing like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, rest day on Thursday, and then Friday we kind of send it on all 3 lifts.
So you're hitting all 3 lifts each day, maybe lower weight, and then hitting them again, or what does that look like?
No, so I'm squatting 3 days a week. I'm deadlifting 2 days a week, and I'm benching 4 days a week.
Okay.
There's very few singles. They might be on maybe on Friday. I would take some singles, but if it's the off season, probably not.
Okay.
Right? We'd be doing sets of 5 sets. Maybe we do a heavy triple, right, and then a 3x5 for the back downs, and then I would go on the bench, do roughly the same thing. A fairly heavy triple, drop it by 20%, do a 3x5, and then I'll head over to the, as we call it, the bodybuilding side, and hit the accessories, all the machines. And
Question on that. So when I look at my structure of my training, it's such a common word now, but kind of like a hybrid trainer. I do some running, I do some hypertrophy training, and I do some strength lifts, like just some lower rep stuff. Question for you is this, right? When I look at my training schedule, the days that I hate are when I'm under a bar or lifting a bar off the floor with a lot of weight for low reps. It drains I don't know if it's my central nervous system. I feel like crap afterwards. I want to get those days over with. Why do you think that you gravitated towards doing that all the time, every day, all year round? It's like your lifestyle are those big lifts. What is it about that was more appealing to what is absolutely more common, which is more of the moderate weight, moderate reps, hypertrophy style gym stuff? What is it that really grabs you about the heavy bars and the heavy loads?
For me, having a competition on the horizon is what does it, right? So like I just competed a few days ago and I'm already 18 weeks out from my next one. So when I look at my program from my coach and I see like, I got a squat, a heavy single, right? No volume, right? The kind of day that you hate, right? I got to get all warmed up, suited up, put a very dangerous amount of weight on my back, and I have to hit it for 1 rep. I love that adrenaline, but I also love that I know where I want to be in 18 weeks. I know what I want to do at that meet. So every single day is crucial for me to do what I want to do on that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And what does, and I know we got to jump soon, but nutrition's so important for anybody listening. So when I hear those heavy loads, intensity, all those things, what's your approach to kind of athletic nutrition to support your competitive goals?
Yeah, well, that's where I definitely lack.
We all tend to lack in that area.
This used to be an argument with my coach all the time. Now I think he's just accepted that I eat like a child. I don't eat junk anymore. I have gotten better with that, but again, I mean, we're not like the most healthy people, powerlifters. You know, aesthetics have nothing to do with it. So it doesn't matter what we look like. You know, I do zero cardio. You know, I'm not the face of fitness, like, that's for sure. You know, I can pick up a really heavy object one time, right? So that's high protein and high carbs.
Yeah.
It should be cleaner. I should eat cleaner. You know, it'd be good for me inside and outside of the gym. But, you know, I mean, so long as I eat a lot of protein and a lot of carbs, you know, I am able to do a 1 rep max. You know, I'm not running a marathon. I'm not doing a set of 10 or 12.
Yeah.
You know, I'm getting under a bar. I'm hitting it one time,
Well,
you know? So, I mean, again, I'm downplaying it. Yeah, it would be great if I ate better. I'd probably be stronger. I know I would be stronger, but that is the one area where I lack the discipline. And,
yeah.
you know, I can justify it a lot of different ways. You know, here comes the addict in me coming out.
Yeah.
You know, if I ate cleaner and healthier, I feel like I would be unhappy. You know, I'd be kind of miserable. Like, if I was abiding by a really, really strict, rigid diet, and then this whole thing could fall apart. I might say, why am I even doing this? Like, it's already hard enough hitting these weights, going to the gym consistently. You know, I got 3 kids, I got work, I got mortgages. Like, if I want to have a ribeye every night, I have a ribeye every night. Like, it's my happy place.
Well, look, man, if there's a pattern we're picking up on here, just in this conversation, when you do something, you go all in, right? Whether it's, you know, skateboarding, your relationship with Nicole, powerlifting. If in the next season you kind of hang up the chalk or whatever for powerlifting and you move towards something more cardio based, I'm sure you'll crush that. And if you ever want to tighten up your nutrition, you seem like you're all in on stuff. I'm sure you'll crush that too.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome, Mike. Well, it's been an awesome opportunity chatting with you. I do want to wrap with one more question though. If you had any advice that you would be able to potentially give your younger self, Mike, what would that advice look like today?
Oh man.
I know it's a doozy of a question.
Yeah, you know, I saw like a meme on Instagram or something. It said, if you had 3 words to tell your younger self, and the first thing that popped in my head was, don't do drugs. but like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I want to change my story. You know,
I hear you on that. I really do.
It's a weird thing, man. Like, I had these years of just unbelievable depression and you know, just living in active addiction, but I don't know that I want them gone. You know, they're so important to me.
Part of your story.
Yeah. You know, I don't know that I would be like the dad and the husband and everything else that I am if I didn't go through all that pain. And now I know what to avoid. You know, those experiences were huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I started powerlifting younger. Maybe that's what I'd tell my younger self. You know?
Get to the gym.
I love the gratitude.
I lifted weights for like 15 years before I actually started powerlifting, you know, and now I go to these competitions and like these dudes are like 25 with no kids. And like, you know, I'm like, you don't know, man. You don't know.
You have no
idea what it takes a 38-year-old with children like to get to the same level. You know?
I'm just happy to be here.
Mike, that answer is actually, it's amazing. It's beautiful. You're grateful to be who you are. You know what, to use your 3-word thing, maybe you grab that kid, that younger Mike, you put your hand on the back of his head and you say, you'll be okay. And that's it. Maybe it's just a hug.
Yeah.
You'll be fine because you're a friggin' awesome person, man. And you're an amazing story. So I think your answer is perfect. You're grateful where you find yourself. And that's what we all want to be, right?
Amen. Amen, Mike. That was incredibly well said. And congrats again on almost 8 years, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Super, super excited to be able to have you on today and to really hear your story. I think it resonates a hell of a lot with myself. I know with Jesse, and I'm sure with, you know, the thousands of listeners are going to be feeling the same thing. So thank you again. And Jesse, any closing words that we want to leave the listeners
Just
with?
my gratitude, man. Appreciate you getting to know you here. I feel like you're a brother from another mother. And thanks for taking the time to be on and letting us tell your story in this type of setting for the first time, because it's an amazing story. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, man. You know, I mean, if it can help anyone, you know, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I said anything of any substance, but like every speaker I've ever heard always says that, you know, and I'm like, oh man, you just changed my life with what you said, you know. So anyone struggling out there, you know, there's a better way to live, man. You can do it. If we did it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Well said.
Seriously.
I appreciate you, Mike.
Awesome. All right, guys. Until next time.
Hosted by Ultim Fitness, this podcast is an extension of our mission to empower individuals to use fitness and community to break free from alcohol and other harmful addictions to live their best life yet. The Live Fit Break Free podcast.